Today, lawyers acting on behalf of the United States launched a new attempt to have Julian Assange extradited from the UK, arguing that concerns around the Wikileaks founder's mental health should not prevent him from facing U.S. justice. Assange is wanted in the States on 18 criminal charges, including breaking a spying law, but mostly for publishing classified documents, after his group published thousands of secret classified files and diplomatic cables in 2010. This week's court battle is in response to a January ruling by a British judge who rejected the United States extradition request, citing the WikiLeaks founder's mental health. Meanwhile, Amnesty International is calling on the U.S. to drop the charges and for the U.K. to immediately release Assange.
So this comes on the heels of reporting by Yahoo News that the CIA was plotting to kidnap and assassinate Assange. So I recently spoke with President Trump's national security advisor, General Keith Kellogg, on the Federalist Radio Hour podcast. I asked him about this. This is what he said in response to my questions about the former president, Donald Trump, being named in that Yahoo News report. Super interesting response. Take a listen.
He kind of looked at him as somebody who was treated unfairly. Mm-hmm. And he kind of related it to himself, because I think the president internalized people the way he was treated by either the press or even some politicians, and he thought it was unfair. And there was an unfairness there. He said, okay, I want to address that. And so that was the corollary that you saw there. It was because he thought anybody that was picked on, maybe there was some good to him, and maybe they were treated unfairly, because very candidly, I thought President Donald J. Trump was treated unfairly by the press. I think it was people out there for the most part, most major mainstream media, it became a personal attack. It was an ad hominem attack. It was an attack on his policies. And he wouldn't back down. I mean, not at all. And I think he kind of saw that with Julian in the same way, like, okay, this guy's not backing down.
Here to weigh in on all of this is Parker Higgins, Director of Advocacy at the Freedom of the Press Foundation. Welcome, Parker.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's start with the news today. What do you think of the developments that are happening overseas as it relates to Julian Assange right now?
So following the trial closely as it proceeds, so far we haven't seen any real surprises in the courtroom. Julian was, he had originally reported that he wasn't feeling well and wasn't going to be observing, but he is observing, and you know the U.S. is the lawyers for the U.S. are making the case you'd expect, and we'll see what the appeals court thinks.
So Assange was about, as I understand it, was about an hour late this morning, saying that he wasn't healthy enough to make it. How did were you able to see him? How did he appear when he finally did arrive?
I didn't see him today, but this has been over the course of the. So this is the appeal, and of course there was the equivalent of the district court level, and it's been a recurring thing that he is calling in. The audio quality's been mediocre, and his experience of the trial has been something that I think appears to be at best a secondary concern. So. I don't have any insight on how he's feeling today, but it has been sort of a recurring problem and something that you'd hope that they'd fix. That sort of justice demands at this kind of trial that at least the person who's being discussed is able to observe and to really get a full sense of what's happening.
And so today is going to be the prosecution, tomorrow the defense. So what basically has been the prosecution's argument today for why the ruling that he should not be extradited should be thrown out?
So a big part of that has been, this is an appeal, and so it's on pretty technical grounds. And a big part of that has been that effectively the U.S. government is willing to make certain assurances that the concerns this is under extradition law of the kinds of, the harms that could befall someone in the U.S. prison system or someone who's got these mental health issues, that he could be spared of those concerns. The court has been willing to push back on that a bit and note that the U.S. doesn't have a very clean record in terms of ensuring the health and safety of people in its custody.
Can you tell us more about what they're saying in that argument? I mean, how have they laid that case out in court?
Do you mean the prosecutors?
Yeah, so exactly what you just mentioned, the mental health angle.
Right. So the defense, defense for Assange has said that he poses a risk of suicide and he has these mental health problems, and the government has basically just offered assurances, and they've said that he, were he to face trial and ultimately have to do, effectively a U.S. prison term, that could be done in his native Australia. And there are various assurances like these, but again, coming on the heels of the reports that you just mentioned from Yahoo News, and that the top level officials considered extrajudicial kidnapping or assassination, it does seem like sort of whatever assurances they can make in court are colored by that, by those allegations.
Did the court bring up any of those allegations? Obviously, the defense will bring them up tomorrow. But did the court bring them up? And did the court bring up the fact that while these assurances were portrayed as blanket assurances by the U.S. media, if you look at the fine print, it actually says, we will allow him to serve his term in Australia after he's exhausted, all his appeals, which could be decades, and we will keep him out of, solitary unless we think we need to put him in solitary. So did the court probe on the fine print of those assurances?
As far as I've been following it as it's been happening today. I haven't seen much in the way of statements from the court on that, and we would expect more of those tomorrow as we get into the defense. But yeah, those are real concerns, and there was something that at one point the prosecutor said. Alluded to the fact that, he could come to the U.S. and then the whole thing could be dropped on First Amendment grounds, it does feel a little through the looking glass when you think about how long this process has been going on, and think about we still don't really have a sense. We're dealing at the extradition stage now, but the charges themselves are something that are basically unprecedented in U.S. legal history. And so to make confident claims about what would happen and how those would proceed seems to be a little overconfident at this point.
Yeah, I asked General Kellogg about the Yahoo report because I thought the former President Trump's comment in it where he said, I actually thought that Assange has been treated very badly was really interesting because it doesn't seem like many other people in his administration agreed with that at all. What do you expect, or how do you expect any discussion of that Yahoo report to be treated actually in court?
Yeah, it's hard to say, in part because I think about how it would be the way that it could play into a U.S. court proceeding, and it's very different, obviously. But it does seem like that sort of reporting and it is a fact pattern that we just can't. I mean, you can ask General Kellogg and you can get Pompeo on the record, but there's some things about this that the court should take into advisement but won't know for sure. And so it will be interesting to see how the defense presents it and what it means. I mean, like at the Freedom of the Press Foundation, a comparison that we've drawn before in terms of Espionage Act proceedings is, of course, to the Pentagon Papers and to Daniel Ellsberg, who's a founding member of our board. And in that case, it was really a procedural and misconduct of prosecutors that ended up making the difference. And history has reflected this as really a vindication of a whistleblower. But at the time, it was the fact that the Nixon administration was engaged in some really bad behavior.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they broke into a psychiatrist's office. They otherwise contemplated all sorts of crazy things. The parallels are very interesting. And so, yeah, thank you for covering this, and thank you for being here today, Parker.
Thank you.
And we will have more Rising right after this.